Welcome to my channel and thank you so much for clicking on my video. And we said in the month of March we were going to see some wonky price action. We were going to see a bunch of traps back and forth, and we noticed that the first one we actually marked off here actually played out. Then the second one we got it. Third one's here. Do we get a fourth one up in this location? That's what we're going to be talking about today as we get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, AMD, and we're going to peek over at Meta, maybe look at a few other things like the VIX. So let's get into it. That was the Qs, but the SPY doing a very similar thing, right? We were talking about a lot of traps coming in March, and we actually told you guys that around this area here. We overall stated, hey, there could be some kind of trap down in this area, and then look out, because if this is a trap, then we're probably going to make a higher up trap to really trap those bulls, and then we're going to get a downward move to trap those bears, and then we are going to get that upward move. So if you were tuned in for yesterday's video, we noticed there was this 5-minute divergence here. I tried to put it on Patreon as soon as possible. I'm going to be better on Patreon at giving you guys those videos that you don't see on YouTube throughout the actual trading day, so you can see these trade setups, and I tried to be a little better at it today, posting something with NVIDIA that we're going to talk about. Big thing happening on NVIDIA here. Now, what you're here for today, we're looking if that third trap is going to set up. Somewhere in this area was what we were talking about, right? We were open to this being some kind of head and shoulders, left, head, and then a right shoulder right next to this wedge that we're in. So if we break through this tomorrow, that'd be bad news. But today we need to focus on some other things, see what's going to play out in the near price action. But 513.83 to the upside for your daily expected move, and 505.79 for your daily expected move to the downside. Okay, so options is pricing in another bigger move for tomorrow. We noticed we got some fluctuation in price throughout the day today, and we'll have to see, is this going to be some kind of ABC pattern to go up and test this high tomorrow, or are we going to see this confirm as a right shoulder and head lower? Now, the thing that I wanted to point out, we did not fill this gap at this point, so that could be unfinished business and we could push a little bit higher. But what did we talk about last night? Focusing on the MACD is overall what we were talking about, right? Seeing if this is able to curl over in negative territory, and look how sneaky it is. We're not getting that curl over at the end of the day, so we'll really have to see with this buying back up right here if we're able to see higher prices for the SPY. The cool part about these risk ranges is they're at very important levels for tomorrow for the SPY. We have one at the high up here and one down here at this base. So if we do get excited and go down to this level pretty quick early on in the day, look for some kind of bounce, maybe for some kind of retest of this area before we actually break through this base. We might even take into next week to do that base. Now, something I'm really leaning towards is actually another move higher here. I believe another move higher here would make a lot of sense. You would fill this gap, you'd trick a lot of the bulls in order to get them kind of tricked that this thing's going even higher, and it very well could. We could get another point here. Look out for some divergences on the hourly and things like that. But overall, I think that this right here was a trap, right? And then people get really bullish, and then we see that sell off a little bit. Now is this a little mini trap here, and we're actually going to see an ABC pattern up with some kind of double bottoming in here. So there are buyers here. We're seeing some wicking. See if that's able to go to the upside. The overall takeaway here, though, is we are going to create a trap somewhere in this area, and then we're going to break through this wedge after that does happen. So we are open to higher prices, but we're just talking about tomorrow. And for tomorrow, you got to pay attention to that top side, to that bottom side, which is very nice because it's the base and the high. Cool thing about today's ranges as we open up the Qs is this actually was your daily range. Right at this wick up in here was your daily range, and we dink off it and we see that selling come in. So this is how you can use those ranges. They're very powerful, and I encourage you to really utilize them. I've been using them for the past few days, and if you've been showing up to my live video, I've been taking a lot of profit. So there's a lot of good things out there, a lot of good trades to be made. The big thing that was kind of a hint with this possibly wanting to go a little bit higher, the reason I'm leaning towards a higher push is because, yes, we tested that daily expected move, but we came down into the weekly expected move and we weren't able to break through it. We actually saw buying come in right at this level, so we could be getting some basing out here, maybe to make that ABC push higher. Guess what? If we come and fill this gap early on in the day, well, we would be outside of the daily expected move, which leads me to believe, hey, we have a 68% chance to land back in this zone. If you're new to this channel, this is all the options have priced in for tomorrow. So when you do get excited and get outside of it, you have a 68% chance to land back in that zone. So I'm going to be paying attention to both ways. If we do drop a little bit lower, look for some kind of divergence down here. We could be getting some kind of bounce before CPI. If we actually see an ABC pattern to head higher, well, then I'll be looking for some resistance at this high here. And if we don't see that resistance, we're able to hold in positive territory, no curl overs early on in positive territory, then you can't test this high. You can go make a new one. So we really just have to be willing to flip back and forth, and I keep saying it, trade like water, and you have some very good levels to pay attention to tomorrow, right around that gap fill. And guess what? The bottom side here is right around that base. So 443.44 to the upside and 434.26 to the downside. We're going to really be paying attention to this tomorrow, so I highly encourage you guys, turn on those notifications, subscribe, and join me for the live video where we do watch this in the morning, and we're going to be watching Jerome Powell, so come join us. Apple, another leg lower today. Not the most dramatic move, right? We're getting that tapering to come in at this point, so we could see some kind of move out of Apple soon. You guys know that I'm not touching this, though. It is way outside of its weekly range. You guys know this if you're part of the Patreon. You see those weekly ranges. Apple is way outside of it. So the thing about these ranges, okay, let's just draw a fake one right here. This isn't the actual range, but let's just draw one up in this area because it is far away. You notice that we gap below something very important. It's in this area, and we start to head down. This is what can happen 32% of the time. If you do see it get well dramatic and it's not able to buy back up and get in that zone, well, then you can hold as resistance above it and then just keep heading down. And that looks like what we're seeing overall with Apple at this point. And I would highly encourage you, even if it does see a solid bounce because it's very oversold, it would be kind of a luck play. There's no real technicals here telling you that this should go higher. If anything, the technicals are just telling you, hey, this thing consolidates and drops. It consolidates and drops, and now it's starting to even consolidate down, which is not a good sign for Apple. The only thing I would think here that causes Apple to pop is if we do see people rotate kind of out of NVIDIA or out of AMD and maybe start to buy back up into Apple. So if we do see a big reaction here, look for us to touch this area here and then maybe get rejected, because we like to pop out of a zone, test it, and then go lower. Well, we can come test this area and go even lower out of oversold conditions. Amazon was very, very interesting, and we're right back down at this base. Okay, we're right in the area where we've been paying attention to Amazon for quite some time. We saw that curl up in positive territory that told us, hey, this thing has a good shot to test this high, go make a new one. We overall were saying, hey, this could go make a new high. So right now, what you're seeing here is possibly a double bottom. If you go into a shorter time frame, like a 15-minute, look at this. We have a 15-minute divergence. If you're part of the Patreon, look at those weekly expected moves. I'm just giving you a hint here. And we're going to put out a video for Patreon tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow we're most likely going to put out another little video for you. But notice this basing here. We do have that divergence. If this curls over, guess where it'll be? Positive territory. You have a double bottom. You can measure this out here and see where it would land you. Most likely we're going to be somewhere up towards, well, that gap fill. Look at that. We would head towards that gap fill, maybe see if that's able to hold as resistance. The overall thinking with this is we create a little head and shoulders up here, maybe at this gap fill. Then we see that as a trap again, and we see that pulled away right when everyone starts to get bullish. Everyone says, oh, the market's going up, the market's going up. Well, then that gets ripped away, and we see this base taken out. And what that allows us to do is get a good pattern to come down. We get a head and shoulders up high. That leads us into the bigger grand scheme head and shoulders here. So we could see this actually pop up, break back all the way down into this base somewhere around 166, and then we see a good bounce there. And you can see over here the head, or the left, the head, and the right shoulder in the future. So something that would be very cool to see. Now, it doesn't always work that way, so we still want to follow the price action. And as of right now on Amazon, you're seeing a 15-minute divergence. I'm going to tell you it's near the weekly expected move. Okay, so if you really want to get some solidarity, some confidence moving forward with your trades, really think about clicking that link in the description for the Patreon. It costs a cup of coffee every single month, and you get the monthly ranges, weekly ranges for all these stocks, and you get a video every single week that you don't see on YouTube. Tesla, something I've been looking at is possibly some kind of head and shoulders down here, a little reverse one like this, a little bit slanted, but we could be seeing this, it's starting to taper off. It's not seeing that dramatic selling anymore. It's starting to really taper off here, and we're seeing that divergence kind of forming. So now you do have that divergence right here. Will we form another divergence up in this area, dip a little bit lower maybe, and then see that turn back around? So we can see a bounce in some of these stocks that have really seen some pain, but I wouldn't bank on this bounce holding. When you do see sell-offs this dramatic, there is a reason for it. Sure, you can get a solid pullback, but most likely that's going to roll back down on a 30-minute or an hourly. So you'll notice this, the 30-minute, this is the same with Apple. The 30-minute way down here in negative territory, this makes it a little harder to get into positive territory, right? So that's why we like divergence. It gets us closer. something we go over in the course, which is down in the description as well. But you'll just notice that we're really far away still from that positive territory. So you need a really strong move to get there. How this could build back up, complete the cup, get a handle and start to head higher, then complete some kind of cup up in here, get a handle and head higher. There is a way to build back, but we would have to push through all that bad news from China. So not something that I think will really happen. I'm really seeing if some kind of bounce happens from here, if it's able to roll back over into negative territory, then I know that negative trend is going to continue, most likely testing this low. And if we break through that level, watch the daily. Okay, Tesla, you have to pay attention to a lot of different charts, but look at this daily. It just crossed. When a stock crosses, we know some of my rules here on this channel, but when a stock crosses on this MACD to the downside, I don't care what the shorter time frames look like, I'm not playing this bounce. We can go reconnect with these moving averages, right? That's perfectly fine, but the likelihood of us getting rejected there is very high at this point because we just got that crossing of the MACD in negative territory. So this is telling you right now, sure, we could see some kind of bounce based on those shorter time frames, but this MACD right here is telling you, hey, we're going to break through this low and go down to lower levels, most likely heading towards 154.78. So I'm not saying some positivity can't come in over the next few days, can't get some kind of big move to retest. I'm just saying this crossed over, and one of my rules is I do not buy calls on a stock that just rolled over, especially in negative territory on its MACD. NVIDIA on the daily, still parabolic at this point, going up into an area we were expecting, right? We were expecting us to get up into this area. If you're part of the Patreon, we actually posted this afternoon showing you guys this 30-minute divergence, and we actually gave you those weekly ranges, okay? So on YouTube, this is something I know a ton of people are trading, so I wanted to give you at least the top side because we're getting outside of it at this point. So this is an area where you need to say, hey, maybe I want to take some profit off the table, because most of the probabilities here are telling you that the probabilities, the risk to reward here is just barely some upside, but a lot of downside. We could come all the way back into below 864 by the end of the week. So if we just keep trailing higher, we can see some kind of drop to get us back in there. Pay attention to this 864.83, 900 level, really where I'm paying attention to NVIDIA, right up above us, because 900 is where we have a bunch of calls. So if this comes to the end of the week and 900 is the level we're at, we could see that slightly ripped away. But if people keep trying to pile on the puts, we told you guys this was most likely heading higher here, especially like last night we said this is most likely heading higher, just because these people are selling based on the narrative of Tesla and Apple. So Tesla and Apple come out and say, bad news with China. And then you also have other stocks like Meta saying, hey, this insider is selling. You have even more stocks that are saying that now with AMD. But this isn't bad enough news. This isn't bad news centered around NVIDIA. So you will see that profit taking from some people because they're getting scared out because of that news. But this rolls up in positive territory, it's going to go higher, and now this probably caused a lot of people to go to the put side, and then we can squeeze them a little bit more. So if more people are piling on puts here, this can keep squeezing for quite some time. So this is a trade you want to be very, very careful with if you are trading NVIDIA, because it can keep going parabolic. But as of right now, you do see this divergence, something we pointed out on Patreon earlier. You see this massive divergence here on the RSI and MACD. Not a good sign going into tomorrow. AMD, we're seeing a very, very similar thing. And this one here, I can pull this up. It says, not necessarily right here, insider sold shares worth $1.3 million. I mean, not the hugest amount, honestly. We've seen Jeff Bezos selling, it was like almost $50 billion worth of Amazon. Okay, but what we were paying attention to here, this is your weekly expected move, the upside, 217.10. I could easily see us getting a reaction there. Are we going to see that fail? That's what I'm really paying attention to at this point. Look at this divergence we do have on the MACD and RSI at the same time, just like NVIDIA. This is telling you the momentum has died out. If we get some bad news here, we can see this get a dramatic drop. And because we've gone up so fast, we can start to drop pretty fast as well, especially with NVIDIA, SMCI, and some of those. AMD might have a little bit more of a stair stepper down, right? Come all the way down to 180, then stair step. But for the most part, we're really thinking this thing is going to tear down pretty soon, okay? We do get CPI next week. Now, I did say it is going to stair-step its way down. The reason that it's going to stair-step its way down is because this is a very, very bullish move, okay? This move all the way from the bottom, going from a price point well, way down here back in 2022, going from $55 all the way up to 210 in just a couple years. And this move here is really, really, really strong. So the reason that we could stair step our way down instead of seeing some kind of crash, we still could see that crash happen, but overall, I think we might stair step our way down a little bit more just because people are still going to be bullish. Even when this thing is pulling back, they're going to say, hey, this is a pullback and we're going to head higher and it's going to go to 1,000 on AMD. And that can cause these big bounces in the overall market, which is a good reason to take my course. It's going to be 50% off. It's $100 for the whole month of March. And it teaches you a great strategy that I personally use. You get to learn about the indicators, how I see them. Myself, I explain exactly how I think about these indicators and exactly how you can read into them. And then at the end, we tell you how you can use them in a bear market, which is something that I believe is coming in the month of March. And we're already seeing that fluctuation in price. Meta, we did give you those weekly ranges here, okay? So 521.09 to the upside, we have 483.95 to the downside, and we even gave you the monthlies. Those are the yellow lines on your screen right here, so read into those. But right now, it looks like some consolidation to make a push higher. The overall thinking here is we have a bunch of divergences across the board down here. These are pretty flat at this point. So if we wanted to make a recent price action divergence, that would make a lot of sense. So what we want to do when we're looking for a 2-hour divergence, go into a 30-minute, see if we're going to create a divergence here. Well, this is about to curl over, possibly into negative territory again. Okay, so what this would tell you is this is just a slanted head and shoulders. We got the head, we got the left, we got the head, and maybe this is a small right shoulder. Now we can get a little complicated here, break through this level and then use this as our base before we want to actually head lower. So we can see those bumps in the road on the way down, but this is how you would see it if this starts to curl over and break through this center line right here, this line right here. It's going to mean bad news for Meta. Not necessarily leaning towards that because that would get us outside of the weekly on tomorrow if we saw that dramatic selling come in. I think this might have one more push left in it. So if I go down into a 15-minute, I can look for some kind of divergence up here. And it looks like we may even want to go and test this higher, go make a new one before that happens. I'm still open to anything at this point. I am flipping back and forth, trading like water, and you guys are seeing it live. I'm taking a lot of profit when I do see it because I never know when the next big move the opposite way is coming. So if I make good money, I'm taking it. One trade that I was mentioning on the live show here was Google. Google looks like it could see some kind of pop here. 15-minute triple divergence down here. You got a divergence between these. You got a divergence between this right here. So we could see some kind of pop, but will that be short-lived? I would really pay attention to this gap closing up in here. This area here can be some resistance. We could just go and tag this and keep going in this channel straight down. So it is something you want to be very careful with. But I know that people were looking at Google Live, and so we were pointing out these divergences a little bit, even though we were watching Jerome Powell, and especially on a few other things we did just mention. This divergence here, it could lead to some kind of bounce, but you are still in a very negative trend overall, so be very careful with these short time frame bounces because you're getting a closing bar on Google below the 200. That is not good news at this point. You're starting to, this is a 5-day, I changed it for this video. You're starting to ride this 5-day down, and look where that 5-day would land, right at the top of this channel. So even if we do see buying back, that could just be a test of that 5-day again. We see selling continue. So this weakness in these Mag 7 stocks is very, very worrisome. And it really looks like the only thing holding this market up is AI and chip stocks. The VIX, a huge thing I want to show you guys about the VIX here. Okay, indecision day, but holding above the moving averages. That's a good sign for volatility come back in. What was the trigger that we mentioned in yesterday's video for volatility to fully come back in this market? Well, it's when this MACD crosses. So if you're a bull, you really hope this MACD does not cross tomorrow. If this MACD crosses, you're going to get a closing green bar above the 200, your first signal that the crash could really be here. The probabilities start to pile up that we are going to go into a bear market or even a crash right now if we start to close above this 200. So we'll keep our eye on this tomorrow, but just want you guys to notify this is what we were overall saying a couple days ago. We were just saying, hey, once this crosses, that's when I believe volatility is really back into this market. Something we were paying attention to, I actually was looking at a 15-minute originally for volatility as far as yesterday goes. Saw some divergence. It didn't necessarily play out. But we can see a little divergence here on the RSI. Okay, there's this tiny divergence here on the RSI, which means some positivity can come in. Maybe we just want to go fill this gap before heading higher. So if we do see some positivity come in for the next few days, pay attention to this 2 hour. It is now well within positive territory. If this wants to roll down, look for that to fill this gap, get some kind of reaction around 1250 and roll back up. All we have to do is watch this MACD, see it roll down, roll back up in positive territory. If this ends up happening, if we do get some bullishness, once that curls up and crosses in positive territory, that daily is going to cross into positive territory. We're going to close above 200, and we're going to see some more volatility come into this market, and that's where the true skillful traders who are always willing to adapt and always willing to learn and willing to really take their losses as their own fault and just really take accountability for their trading, those are the people who are really successful in this market. The last thing I would just notify you that I did see why volatility can come in tomorrow. This is a big cup. Here's a handle. Let's see if we start to go to the races with volatility tomorrow. Join back for the live video to get that info. Yields we haven't talked about in a little bit, but we are seeing those dramatically drop off. So if you guys are wondering how the market is taking this, whether the market is thinking, oh, he's bullish or bearish, well, this would tell you he's talking a little bit bullish. And we were talking about a lot of things, and I have a whole list of things that I want to talk to you guys about, and we're going to talk about these things for the Jerome Powell video, watching Jerome Powell live tomorrow. We're going to talk about these things before we even open the stock market. So I'm going to get on about 15 minutes early and talk about a few of these things that were said and a few of the comments you guys were making, because you guys were making some great comments. But this pulling down of the yield here is actually good for the tech stocks. Now, this is worrisome because if we start to really push this down, that could mean people are running to safety and TLT. That could mean something in the regional banks, something in the commercial real estate arena is starting to break, and that is not what you want. Now, I did mark off an area where we can pay attention. That'd be this 4.10, or sorry, not 4.10, 4.062. Look if that's able to hold in this channel that it's in. If it starts to break down, we can see that head and shoulders come up, and then maybe we actually do have to cut rates because something is breaking in the system. So be very, very careful out there, guys. So the main takeaway here is this can ruin a lot of traders, but it's not going to ruin you because you are trading like water. You are paying attention to the signals, and you are flipping back and forth during this crazy price action, during all of these traps. Okay, so just keep doing what you're doing. Join those live videos so we can talk about all this stuff live while it's actually happening. And let's pay attention to what Jerome Powell says tomorrow, because it looks like volatility could turn up tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. You guys are liking, subscribing. You guys are enjoying the Patreon. So I just hope this is as beneficial as I can make it. That is the goal with this channel at this point. Really just make it very, very good information for you guys. And that's all I'm trying to do here. So I really appreciate all the positive words that you guys are giving me going forward. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it one more time. Hope you have a good night, and I hope you have all the luck of the world trading tomorrow. Peace.